Welcome back, beautiful, beloved souls. My name again is Gemstone, and I'm a psychic medium, and I am an author. And hopefully you have been on a journey with me. We've been looking at different parts of my life, which I have broken up into different episodes. This is a series about a life surviving abuse and violence. My story. This is episode 3. So previously, I covered abuse and violence in my family life and abuse and violence as a teenager involving gangs, bikies. Now we're going to look at a third episode involving a different time in my life. And this is episode 3, Searching for Love and Finding More Violence. Content warning. This video discusses domestic violence, sexual assault, abuse of power, and mental health trauma. Viewer discretion is advised. I'm sharing these experiences as a survivor to help people understand how cycles of abuse can continue into adulthood. Now, this episode occurred 20-30 years ago. So there's going to be more episodes after this because we've got to deal with my life as an addict yet. So, introduction. By my mid-20s, I believed that if I could just find the right relationship, my life would finally settle down. What I didn't understand then was how deeply childhood trauma had shaped the way I saw love, attention, and relationships. When you grow up believing you're not worthy, any attention can feel like affection, even when it isn't. The assault at 26. When I was 26, I lived in a block of flats where 2 men also lived. One night, they sexually assaulted me, and I couldn't do anything about it because they told me if I went to the police, I was going through a custody battle, that they would say it was all my fault. And remember, if you've been watching my other 2 videos that I uploaded, I'm already in shame. So I already believe that this is my fault. I believed, I made my bed. I did this. So lay in it. Anyway, experiences like that deepen the damage that is already there. Instead of becoming more cautious, sometimes trauma makes you feel even more powerless, as if these things are simply what happens to you. So it becomes normal. For a short time after that, I tried to escape my reality by going out clubbing. But the same pattern continued. I was often surrounded by men who saw vulnerability rather than a person. My second marriage. At 28, I married again. Looking back, I can see that my second husband reminded me in many ways of my father. He drank heavily, he gambled, and he had a violent temper. At the time, I didn't recognize that pattern. When arguments happened, he would often leave to go drinking and clubbing. I would be left at home, and I would be in a horrible place of being frightened, so scared for my life. I would lock myself in a room with my youngest son, who was still a baby, trying to protect him from the chaos. Those were very frightening nights. The night he broke in. One incident stands out in my memory. My son, my youngest one, was around 6 years old at the time. After another argument, he went out again to get wasted. So I locked the door of our flat to keep us safe. But my husband forced his way back in to the flat by climbing through a window. He spat in my face and slapped me. My youngest son witnessed far too much violence during those years, and as an adult, he still struggles with the trauma of those experiences. So it wasn't just affecting me, and this is very important. These abuses, what happens to you as an adult, your children are watching and they're feeling it, they're witnessing it, they're experiencing it too. Now I want to talk about my job at the prison. Around this time, I was offered a job in another town working as a counsellor at a prison. I believed it was an opportunity to start again and build a professional life based on studies, a life to help others. But I later realized that the job offer wasn't entirely professional. My boss had developed a personal interest in me, something I didn't understand at the time. Because my husband hadn't moved yet, I lived temporarily in a motel. That situation left me very vulnerable. Abuse of power. During that time, men connected with the prison, including my boss and others who worked there, began coming to my motel room at night. What followed was a period where boundaries were repeatedly crossed, more sexual abuse, and I felt powerless to stop it. The situation eventually The situation eventually led to rumors and an investigation at the prison. My reputation was damaged, even though I had been the one placed in an unsafe and unequal situation. I want to talk about an inmate, the prisoner. During that same period, I became emotionally involved with an inmate. This was due to the domestic violence that was going on at home. Looking back now, I understand how deeply I was still confusing attention with love. And also, this guy had a hidden agenda. And he later attempted to escape. When he was caught, the blame was placed on me. Going to jail. As As a result, I was jailed for a short time. The irony of working as a counsellor in a prison and then becoming an inmate myself was something I could barely comprehend. While I was there, another inmate assaulted me during an argument over cigarettes that had gone missing. I didn't even smoke. My life flashed. I was in danger. She bashed me. I was black and blue. Fortunately, I fell to the ground, covering my head, and I wet myself. That's how frightened I was. It felt like another moment where violence found me again. And in prison, you hope that you're safe. You know, you're being watched all the time. Yet, other prisoners can get to you. Aftermath. These events left a deep emotional scars. Years later, I wrote about that chapter of my life in a book titled Screwed, trying to make sense of what had happened and how so many boundaries had been crossed. By this stage in my life, the psychological damage from everything I had experienced was beginning to show. I have attempted in my life self-harm and many suicide attempts. I would later be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. But at that time, I didn't understand any of it. I just knew that life kept spiraling into more chaos. Looking back, when people hear stories like this, they sometimes ask why someone doesn't simply walk away from dangerous situations. What they don't understand is that trauma changes the way you see yourself and the world. When abuse has been part of your life since childhood, it can become something you unconsciously expect. Next episode and episodes. In the next episode, I'll talk about the years that followed. That period included addiction, more violence, more abuse, more rapes, guns entering my home, and the dangerous world my husband, Rob, and I became trapped in. It would take many years, 17 years of addiction, before I finally reached the moment where I decided my life had to change. Please stay with me. If you haven't watched the other videos, I would suggest you do, because I'm making a series here, and I am 65 years of age. So we're going to go through different lives, different periods of my life where I survived violence and abuse. And again, I want to thank every one of you for listening. I appreciate any and every view. Thank you, because when I talk, like I say, it's like you're just on the other side of my screen and you're listening. And again, I want to say, if anyone of you or your loved ones has experienced any type of abuse at any age, you are not broken and you do matter. You are important. So if you haven't dealt with it, please reach out. Please reach out either through counselling, or there are other support groups that you can join. Again, if you want to know more about this part of my life, especially when I worked at the prison, as I said, I wrote a book on that part of my life. Again, I'll give you the title, Screwed. And like all my other books, it's available from Amazon. I would ask if you do drop a comment that you do so with respect. Cherish every moment, and please be kind to one another. Take care of yourselves. Love, light, and blessings. And stay tuned for the rest of my life stories. Bye.